Mike talks about Starfield for too long. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and BS High. And now your host, Mike Daglio.
What is up, team? Keith thinks he's so clever. Welcome to K&M Geekly. Just a sneak peek at two geeks talking about what's getting them through their week. Happy Labor Day to those of you in the U.S. We are laboring away. Back on the grind, Keith. I think we have overcome all of the catch-up and the back and forth and the scheduling and whatnot, and we're back to our just get her dones. This week we got some great stuff. We've got K&M Geekly. We've got the season finale of Deep Space Nine. The almost episode of the musical. We're almost done season 2 of Strange New Show.
You want to try that sentence over again?
I don't. Thanks. Actually, a lot of differing opinions on this past week's Strange New Show, which I guess I expected.
The Lower Decks crossover. Yeah, sure.
I expected, but I guess I didn't expect the levels of dissent. We'll talk all about that.
I mean, have you met the internet?
I guess, you know what, Keith, it is, and I'm this generally a little more facetious at the top of the show, but I mean this. I've gotten so cozy in the little college quad we've created of our community, right? Where like there's bean bags around, people just hanging out, drinking.
Wait, so in this analogy, are we like
we're the RAs? I think
are we like bad college kids, or are we like the creepy professor who shows up at the party?
No, we're the RAs who like let the kids hang and
we're
like do
in
their
our
thing.
40s, buddy.
Dude, don't try to psychoanalyze my weird things. Come on. Anyway, I've gotten so lulled by how great the discourse is with our community that when people start to pop off a little bit, and I don't even mean bad, this is just for us, they get a little hype. Like some people really don't like Lower Decks, which is funny to me because all I could talk about was how great I thought it was. And people are like, this is trash.
Well, I mean, but there are some people who just won't touch contemporary Trek, period.
That's fair.
But and I understand, like, it is. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to feel about Lower Decks because of the tonal shift.
Mm-hmm.
Because I take Star Trek seriously, obviously, and then I was like, is this going to still be Star Trek? And you know what? I think they squared the circle there.
Well, Keith, I think you specifically can speak to. Sorry, we can talk about this on the show, but you can speak to. There are high levels of flattery and reverence within spoof, within pistache, within satire, right? It's not always just pick it apart, make fun of it. A lot of time that you have to, for it to be good and funny, you have to have a respect for it.
You cannot parody or do satire well without appreciating the thing that you're making fun of.
Yeah, and you definitely can't play both sides like Barbie tried to do, right? Like get people who love Barbie and people who hate Barbie and have them like the same movie, right? That's a hard needle to thread, but the best
it
comedy
is
can do it.
Yeah. And I think when you're doing an SNL sketch, you can hate the subject,
mm-hmm.
but if you're going to write a show, whether it's an episodic TV show or a movie or a musical or whatever, you can't really hate the subject because
mm-hmm.
you're devoting like a year of your life to this world. And if you hate it, like you're going to hate your time. So there you go.
We're going to talk about something about a scam and fraud, or a hoax. I think hoax is a better term. No, well, you decide later about one of the properties I'm going to talk about today. But I wanted to talk about it with the weather, Keith, because we've begun the fall season.
Is the weather a hoax?
It's not real. The fall season, and it's 95 degrees outside.
The sun is a Nancy Pelosi conspiracy.
Keith, you don't want to start bringing your Trump in because then people get pissed off and it's a whole thing.
Guess what? I don't care.
Very clear, very clear. But, I realized that, do you remember like 2 years ago, there was this big thing, like we passed this thing, there's going to be no more fallback and it's going to be, the sun's going to stay out and it's not going to get dark so early anymore. We can't wait. And then there was like, oh, now they're going to shut it down. Now they're not doing it. It turns out they never passed anything.
No, they never did. They just talked about it.
None of it was real. It was never a thing. It was never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
And I thought there was one issue that was still bipartisan.
No. I thought that too, actually, until I brought it up. Like I was celebrating, and all of my teacher friends or people who go to work, they're like, "Oh, but what about me? Now I got to drive to work in the dark." I was like, "Geez, man, I'm sorry. Can't you give somebody something else? I can't. It has to get dark at 3:30."
What is it better for you to drive at night in the dark or drive in you're driving one way in the dark, and at least your day isn't over at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm speaking from someone with just crushing seasonal affect disorder. So
Yes.
Oof, man, they don't make enough lights that grow bright that can help me out.
Although
Anyway.
we're starting to push it in our studio, kid. But
It's true.
I mean, like, I'm subterranean right now, but it can be brighter than the sun in this basement if I want it to be.
All right, so we have a lot to talk about. I've been spending a lot of time inside lately, Keith.
We know.
Because something came out, and that's my game. And Starfield is out, and it is a Bethesda Game Studios joint in collaboration with Microsoft Game Studios, because Microsoft is just spending those billions to buy up studios, led by the director of all directors, Todd Howard. You might know him from other games such as, I don't know, Morrowind, I don't know, Oblivion, I don't know, Skyrim, I don't know.
I've never heard of any of those.
Fallout.
Heard
just
of Fallout.
Massive role-playing games that are open-ended, that are multiple deep systems, deep RPG elements in the universe of Dungeons and Dragons, where you are creating a character, you are role-playing that character, you are picking perks and items to level up certain skills. You can't have it all, right? So you can either be a tank and go in and beat up all the bad guys, or you can be more persuasive, put your points into persuasive perks and try to talk your way out of jams. And if you have played video games, you've heard of Skyrim. People fall over Skyrim. That is their big, sprawling open world adventure in the fantasy universe. You've got Fallout, which is their big, open, sprawling thing in a sort of post-apocalyptic alternate future where the nuclear race went a different way. And now they've released Starfield, which is their big open world thing in space. This is a great study, Keith, in what you talked about at the top of the show of, like, just the internet can't let you have nice things. This game has been, they spent 8 years working on this game. Bethesda is often made fun of because their games come out a little janky. They're so huge, and their engine at this point is held together with, like, popsicle. They won't spend money to update their engine, so they're just, like, squeezing this lemon to get all the juice out of it. It's showing its age a little bit, but they've spent a lot of money on marketing to push this game, blah, 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 blah. There was a lot of hype. I was hype.
Yes.
And then the game comes out, and believe it or not, it is not a magical entity that comes out and pays all your bills and takes your kids to school, and it is a video game, right? And so people are like, I can't believe it's just a video game. I thought it was going to marry me. It was going to be 90 Day Fiance. Like, just ridiculous, right?
Who's going to marry me?
So the best thing I did was the day that the reviews came out, I went, you know what? I think I'm good. I think I'm not going to read these, because I could tell from the first sentence of the first one, it's like, of course, it's just like Fallout, but in space. I was like, yeah, that's sort of like what they do. So I don't know why that's the thing. Anyway, so I've played the game. I started playing on Friday, and I stayed up till 4 a.m. And then on Saturday, I stayed up till 4 a.m. And Jen was like, you're going to have to sleep at some point. So I did sleep yesterday. And it is just exactly what I wanted, right? Which is, it's one of those games that it doesn't spend 6 hours in the beginning doing tutorials. Like, here's the buttons and do this, do this. It is probably 4 games together. You can go into space combat. You can fly your ship around and, like, dog fight and stuff. Maybe that's not your jam. Maybe you want to spend all your time on planets, desolate planets in the system, just mining resources, no other people around. Or maybe you want to spend time into the actual story content that the game has. The way I like these games, these Bethesda games, is The main story's cool. It's like a 20-hour quest, and this one's like you're Indiana Jones in space, and we're looking for these couple of MacGuffins. Go get them. So far, I only touched that story. I'm sure there's some twists and turns coming, but that's the story, the main overarching story. But where these games are unparalleled, like, sorry to catch my point, like some of my favorite games, your favorite games, Red Dead Redemption.
Right.
Those narrative type games are about the main narrative. Yes, you go off and do side stuff, and there are fun little unique open world things to do and happen. But the main quest is like 50 hours of incredible cinematic storytelling that you interact with. That's not as much this game. This game for me is when you go off into the side paths, there are hundreds of side stories which are mini little tales. It's almost like a spoken hub, right? There's like this main game, but then there's like a ton of different writers and developers got to write their own little novels. So, and there are hundreds of them. And some of them there are no dialogue at all. You go into an abandoned mining facility and you can spend 3 hours in there reading the logs and seeing how things are set up and realizing, oh, shit went down here, and like piecing it together. I love that stuff. That is not for some people, right? That need to like show me where I'm going, show me what to jump to.
Right.
It took me hours to figure out how to work some of this stuff because they just don't tell you. And that's how they do their games. That appeals to you or doesn't appeal to you. I was prepped for it. If I'm like 16 and I just want to like go in, I don't know if that's going to be for me. So rather than talk about the graphical fidelity, I'm not reviewing this video game. I want to just tell you 2 experiences I've had that explained why I'm just geeking out. As a sci-fi lover, Keith, you're a sci-fi lover. Just 2 quick little things. It is wherever we are on this video. I'm going to talk for the next 5 minutes. If this is going to spoil 2 quest lines, so if you want to jump forward and you're going to play the game, cool. Because spoiler warning starts now. All right? When you see the background change, you'll know we're not talking about Starfield anymore. Okay, first thing, Keith. I'm flying around my little ship, my cool little ship. You know, it's kind of dinky, so I'm avoiding space combat because I'm not powerful. I haven't spent any time leveling up my ship, so I'm going off to planets. And I end up at this like remote planet. There's like no dots on the thing. You can go to 100 planets. What they did is they created all these stories, and then they sort of procedurally generate some of the planets, but they import certain quest lines and like points of interest. And it's crazy how it works. So I show up at this mining facility because I beam into the system and I hear crackling on my ear, my comm. It's like, hey, help. And I'm like, what the hell? I pinpoint
distress signal.
Yeah, I beam in. I'm looking for this dude. I can't find anybody. But then in the distance, I see like what looks like kind of smoke. So I'm like, okay. So I like jetpack over there, and there's a abandoned abandoned something mine. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in. So I go in, and then I'm just like attacked by these turrets, right? These like automated turrets. Okay. I don't have a big enough gun to knock them all down, Keith. So I sneak over to the corner. I find a computer. I use one of my digi-picks, which is like a lockpick. I pick into the computer. I hack through the system, and I find a way to turn off all the turrets. So I don't have to kill them all. I can go through. So I'm going through. I'm sneaking, right? Because I'm not powerful enough yet. I find an audio log. This kid's like, yo, my mom's sick. She says she's sick. She don't want to give me any of the money. She's rich. He's like a spoiled kid. But she said if I show up to this mine and go to her office, I can get the inheritance, right? So I go down to the next level. There's all these other booby traps. This huge mech comes by. I'm finding all these different ways to sneak around because I'm not powerful enough to blow them all away. Clearly, I'm at a planet that is more OP than I was ready for. Keep finding logs and logs. And then or I hack into computers and read diaries from his mom, this lady who's like, these kids will never understand, blah, 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 blah. Basically, she's decided that she's really rich and she's going to start using her fortune to like fight crime in this little system. Very Bruce Wayne-y. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I keep going in further. I find out, oh, she's spending her money. I'm starting to see like iterations of suits and all this mech she's building. I was like, oh, she is Bruce Wayne. She's a vigilante, and it's like paying homage to that. Blah blah blah. Long story short, and he's like, what's going on? I finally find a body, right? And I'm like, and I see it's got a backpack and like some like school books and some things. And I was like, oh, damn, that's the kid. He got here and didn't make it. Like, this stuff destroyed him. He didn't make it to his mom. So basically, she set up all these traps because she was dying of cancer. And she was like this superhero, the Mantis, right? And it's like, oh, that's the other thing I missed. When I first flew into the system, I heard comms of other starships being like, we gotta look out the mantises. And so she like was the Mantis and was like fighting crime all over here. She gets sick. She's gonna leave it to her son. He doesn't make it to the facility. But Keith, guess what? I did make it to the facility.
Oh, you did? Yes.
I sneaked. I pipped. I popped. This is a side quest that you might not even find. And it took me almost 4 hours to get through this labyrinth. And once I got there, do you know what? Like all the suits came up, and I saw the Mantis suit, and I grabbed it, and I put on the Mantis suit. And then, Keith, I in my chair, I was like, woo! Because you see smoke, and then this pedestal comes up, and it's the Mantis ship, and you can steal the ship. It's yours now, and you fly off in the Mantis ship. And I was like, yo, I just played the best Batman game in a 4-hour little quest. So now the quest I'm in now, I flew off to another planet, blah, blah, blah. I found FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he's like, I was like, what? I was like, he's a dude from Earth history, my guy. You know, my guy's very charismatic and persuasive, go figure. So what I've put together so far, and I haven't finished the quest, is some laboratory, some weird scientists set up a spaceship and just cloned all of like Genghis Khan's in there, Amelia Earhart, like all of these historical leader figures, and basically threw them in a pot together to see what the F would happen. And they're all starting wars with each other. And I haven't figured out what the mystery is or why they're doing it or what reward helps me or if I can take one of them with me afterwards as a companion. I don't know. But I'm just like,
take FDR with you.
So I'm like, I'm talking right now. I'm having a huge string of dialogue with clone FDR, who's trying to tell me to go kill Genghis Khan. And I'm like, what is even happening in this game? So these are two experiences I've had that couldn't be further from the truth, but are like interesting sci-fi premise. One being pulpy, one being like this weird. What if we cloned all of our historical figures and made them duke it out on a spaceship? And I don't even know what the main game is really about yet. So that's where I'm at with Starfield. I am just having the best time. I don't have nearly enough time to play this game. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a job.
I mean, that's the only daunting part of it. It's like, it's those two stories actually do sound super fun.
Yeah, but I haven't even done any of the ship combat or any of that cool stuff yet. So there's more game too. So I'm really early on. Storytelling, environmental storytelling. It's all good stuff. Starfield, y'all. How'd I do? Wow. It wasn't too bad. 20 minutes.
12.
I'll take it.
12 minutes. You did it all in 12 minutes.
So, Keith.
Pretty good.
One of the summer movies, it's still on my Hall of Shame. I haven't seen it yet, but it's also in space. Let's talk about it.
You haven't seen it yet?
I watched the opening sequence when they're singing Creep. And then Jen was like, I'm falling asleep. Wait for me. And that was it. We never got back to it.
So, so Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3 is now available on Disney Plus, which gave me a chance to watch it because I'm not going to go to the theater. Who do you think I am? And
5.1.
I've got the 5.1. I made it. Then I was like, I had the house to myself. I made it loud. It was really fun. I think this is obviously part of the MCU. It's part of the Marvel universe, but I think that Guardians of the Galaxy was one of those series that when it first came out, I was least interested in the idea because I didn't know the comic or anything like that. I'm like, I don't know, like Marvel's like, to me, the most fun part of the superhero genre is superheroes in our world, right? What would it be like to be able to fly in our world, in the existence that I have? And so my first thought was like, I don't know who any of these people are. We're out in space. I don't know if it's all just very much. And I'm not sure if this is going to be that interesting to me. And I mean, should shock nobody. All of a sudden it comes in the first Guardians, little underdog as an MCU movie. But compared to the others, like, holy crap, this is fresh. It's funny. The cast is fantastic. The storytelling, James Gunn's storytelling is just excellent. So I immediately like, wait, take it back. This is my favorite MCU. And then I really liked 1. I thought 2 was pretty good, and then here comes 3 after a string of MCU. Hasn't been particularly great of late. It's been fine, but it's become kind of bland. And
I think after the two Thanos movies, it sort of was like, what are we doing?
It's really hard to rebuild the stakes again after the whole Thanos of it all. And I think they made a mistake by not grounding it. Again, it's my same criticism, same reason I wasn't into Guardians. It was like, ground it in Earth, right? We're in this quantum realm with the Ant-Man. We're in all this crazy stuff with Thor, whatever. So I don't really have much to hook into. It's all just a whole bunch of Skittles vomit on my screen, and I don't know why I care. The reason the whole Thanos, all of that worked, is we start on Earth. We start where we know. We build our stakes there. We care about what happens to our planet, obviously. And then we expand and we expand and we expand and we expand. And by that point, we've had all the context. So we know why this matters and this matters, this matters. But now it's all just like, it's all just chaos. And we spend 10 minutes a movie on Earth. And so I'm like, I don't know why I care. And I think, and also the human storytelling has sort of been pushed to the side. The emotional storytelling has been pretty thin until Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Nice.
Which I think almost none of it takes place on Earth. So that criticism aside, I haven't emotionally connected to a film in a long time as intensely as I have to this one.
Is it the animal stuff?
It's the animal stuff. Holy crap. The Rocket's backstory, his incredibly tragic backstory. We knew he had a tragic backstory. We had no idea. It pulls no punches. Obviously he was an animal that was experimented on and sort of tortured to gain his like superpower, his super brain. But to get the full extent of the backstory and who he was going with, and it's like a Watership Down sort of a thing. And it is.
Her is brutal.
It is brutal,
but not exploitative, because that was some of the criticism. Most people are like, it's just that way for that way's sake. I don't know if that makes any sense, but did you feel that it was like
emotionally
supported,
manipulative?
Yeah. Well, I hate to say that too, because that's what movies are supposed to do.
Right. You're describing the art form. Yeah. That's right.
I mean, was it like? I guess the criticism was that it was over the top. You couldn't take your kids to it. That it was like, But at the same time,
I think was it extreme? Yeah, absolutely, it was.
But the story
I would argue. Yeah, I think this stuff happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing with like, you shouldn't shield your kids from this. The purpose of telling this story is to build empathy, and to rethink some of the things that we're doing on a daily basis on this planet. Like what happened to him was we see it on the screen in the sci-fi. We're like, oh God, this is so horrible. I don't even want to look at it. Well, we're doing it in real life all the time, and I think we shouldn't look away from that. And I certainly think kids should see that and start to form their own emotional experiences from it. So, that said, like some of it was hard to watch, and some of it was hard, and you sort of knew it was going to happen. You knew sort of where it was going, and it was tough. But I this is not to say that it wasn't still funny and zippy and all over the place with, crazy fun cameos and some fun character stuff. And it does, it sort of wraps up this chapter of Guardians. I think some people will continue in some fashion and some won't. But it was really fun. Fun. It was sometimes very fun and sometimes utterly profoundly heartbreaking.
Cool.
But
I can't wait to watch it.
I didn't mind. I think that it was if so much of the MCU has been under-seasoned post Thanos, this brought the heat. And I think I really appreciated that.
So let me ask you two things. One, well, first a comment. I've always loved the Guardians too, because as much as when the superhero thing took off, it really was a lot of the appeal was we're taking like something that was kind of very much sequestered in the comic universe, and now we're putting it in live action. More people can, and that was cool to see, right? These things were cartoons, and now here they are in the flesh. And what is the superhero experience if they were real?
Yeah.
What I liked about Guardians was it's a translation of, it's still a comic book, right? It's like they're very much comic book characters in the flesh.
Yeah.
And it still felt like a comic, and it used some of the comic tropes, which is why I like the Spider-Verse movies, blah, blah, blah. So I'm glad to hear that they continued it. Now, my question to you is, this was sort of the James Gunn saying goodbye to the Guardians and to the MCU, but it seems like his storytelling and his flair for knowing how to make these things tick and talk is so do you have any excitement for his transition to basically Feigeing the DC universe? So he took, and for those who don't know, James Gunn has now been hired to basically shepherd the entire DC cinematic universe and restart it to make it work now. Do you think, do you think he has a good chance?
I mean, I think if with managed expectations, yes. I think that we are in we're in a lull in our interest in the big superhero movies right now. I think we have become a little bit tired. I think we're a little bit like, so I don't think we should expect the scale in terms of our interest of it. That said, I think he's a tremendously good writer and storyteller. I think that he is very good at mixing humor and heart and action. And those are the things that I want all three of in any superhero movie. And DC has been really missing on kind of all three of them a little bit. And I like the DC properties, but the execution of it has been the humor has not landed. There's very little heart. It's very dark and nihilistic, and I'm not sure. And I'm dark and nihilistic, but I think it's just you need to, and Guardians 3 very dark.
Yeah.
But it still has the heart there, and it still has the humor, and mixing all the seasonings, and he's actually done a fair amount of DC stuff already.
Yeah,
I mean, because if you watch the Peacemaker series, which is definitely probably a little more adult than they're going to do on the flagship, but that had humor, that had heart, that had action on a much smaller scale. And I really enjoyed that. He did the Suicide Squad, the good one.
I'm excited about
all of that.
His Superman for sure. What he'd bring to Batman, and I'm willing to give it more of a shot than I would with anybody else, because I'm really fatigued on superhero movie. Period.
Yeah, I am too, and which is why. But Guardians was one actually like I want to sit down, I want to watch it. I trust James Gunn, and so I think it's going to improve the DC storytelling. I don't know if they'll ever get to Thanos again. But he's smart enough, I think, to rebuild. It's like a sports team, right? When it's time to rebuild, you got to burn it all down, start just with your very basic blocks. And if he's going to reboot, which I think, while I like some of the performers and there are pieces of it that I like. I also watched Flash, which was not nearly as bad as everyone said it was.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's good, but
point being, I am fairly optimistic about what James Gunn can bring to the DC. I will show up. I'll give him a few movies and see how it feels. So we'll see. So that was my long-winded Guardians.
It's long. I have to set aside 3 hours at some point to watch it, but I'm going to.
You do, but It was fine. It was fine. I needed a break from the relentlessness of the of the show that I'm working on.
Yeah, I hear it. We can tease, but we can't talk about it. So, Keith, football. We love football. Football's
Yeah,
here. I
sure
love
do.
HBO documentaries. A shout out to my brother-in-law John. I would have totally missed this had it not been he not flagged it for me last night, and the premise seemed so cool that I watched it last night. So, those of us on the East Coast, we love football, but we don't. Unless you went to a college where football was like the thing, right? A lot of people don't know just how gigantic football is in the South and in a lot of places, not just like college football, but like high school football. Football is like a economic focal point in a lot of these places. It is in many ways unfortunately, the only opportunity a lot of young men have to escape their circumstances. Even I thought I knew that, but I didn't. I don't quite know it in my DNA as much as some people. The closest I ever had to taste it was like my brother went to Penn State, so the excitement, the fervor around that team sort of gave me a taste of it. But that's nothing compared to what's happening in Florida, Georgia, Ohio, a lot of other
Texas,
stuff like that.
Alabama, yeah.
So within that context, it's no surprise to hear that but it's heartening to hear that there are institutions that, for kids who can't get into college or kids who are coming from bad economic situations or whatnot, provide opportunities like a centralized football program, but also provide educational tutoring to get scores up, basically like a prep school, like your junior and senior year, to help you lower economic type students, to help them get their grades up, to help them fix their sort of emotional problems, places at home or whatnot, as they're playing football, and mentoring them and like feeding them into D1 schools and whatnot. It's like amazing thing to hear, right? That like it's not just all money. And so that's what this guy here, his name is, I should say before I start, sorry. This was directed by Martin Desmond Rowe, Trevor Free, and produced by Michael Strahan and HBO Sports documentaries. So this team basically started as an offshoot of a church, and they started taking in young men and tutoring them, or providing them tutoring opportunities to get them into colleges, and then basically getting money from the communities and donations from church and whatnot to build up this football program. And eventually, they get to play IG. What's the name of the school? There's a big Florida feeder school, IGM. I think that's not right. Something like that. IMG Academy in Florida, and they play a big game on ESPN, televised big game on ESPN, and got decimated. I mean, you have this like highly funded program and this lesser funded program.
I think I saw clips from this on TikTok.
Yeah, and
started to become familiar.
It was like 60-0, but not only that, but like within the first like couple plays, the kid pops his ACL, and there's no training staff. He's just laying there writhing because there's no training staff. And
oh my God.
By halftime, even ESPN is like, this is a disgrace. This is they shouldn't be here. This is the detriment to the kids, blah, 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 blah. And you find out everything I just said to you, Keith, is bullshit. They weren't providing opportunities to anybody. They were scamming kids. And the whole premise is, it's called BS High because there was no school. It's not a school. And many of these kids weren't even in high school. It was just this guy preying on young men and saying, I can still get you to a Division I college. I can get you to a Division I college. He's not really a football coach. He's not an educator in any way. Not supposed to be working with children. Ends up potentially identity thefting these kids and taking out PPP loans in their name and like feeding this whole thing. And then, as a true sociopath, comes on the documentary and basically says it all. And
amazing.
It is amazing. It is a study in just how football and guess what? It turns out he didn't break any laws. It's not illegal to start a fake school and hire a firm to put together a really hard.
Wait, tell me more.
So that day they played that game on ESPN, They played a game the day before.
Oh my God.
Right? They had kids playing two ways. It was just, and so like, not only was he taking money, but he was putting them in harm's way. Like that is a true sociopath.
Yeah.
And so this
Yikes.
this film works on two levels. Like the story is really fascinating and maddening, but they have complete cooperation from him. They have a bunch of the students come on and tell their side of the story. So it's heartbreaking. So it's like a fascinating story about how it even got to ESPN and all that. But it's also like an exploration of just a sociopath and watching them do their thing. So a lot of questions. What's ESPN's culpability? What is the culpability of even like giving this guy another platform? All these things. So those are questions and criticisms that are founded. But the story is too tantalizing. It's 90 minutes in and out documentary. If you have even a tangential interest in high school sports, football, crime documentary, like all these things.
Yeah.
It is interesting and definitely worth a watch. It's called BS High. It's an HBO documentary on Max.
I will 100% watch that.
Yeah, it's definitely a Keith Varney high recommend. Okay, so that just brings us, Keith, to the final little portion of our show here. We call it the Weekly Rad. Just something rad that happened to you this week or a story you want to tell. What do you got for me?
You know what? I will do this as a reminder to you, buddy. Tonight is our fantasy football draft.
Yes.
We are here. It's weird for a geek show, but I am a giant sports fan and football fan, and I have set up my command center for football. I've cobbled together through like Facebook Marketplace used nonsense. I have a 5 TV setup behind me, ready for football. I can't wait.
This is
the
like
fantasy
a serious
draft
league
tonight,
too, man. The draft is long, it's deep. I don't know any of the players in it. The best I've ever done in your league is 3rd place, which is not to sniff at.
You did 3rd. That's pretty good.
But that was like a decade ago, and I haven't scratched the top 5 in years. But I will take another swing.
Keep swinging.
I always feel so good right after the draft, and then Yahoo sends me an email, and they're like, "Yeah, that was shit."
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I always win the draft and then don't make the playoffs, so it's fine.
You've won a couple of years though, right? Haven't you?
Yeah, I've got it.
And then you make yourself a trophy. Yeah, we know.
See, all of these are fantasy football trophies.
Oh,
Let me get out of the way. There we go. Every one of those is a league championship.
Oh, man. I can't. It's just wonderful.
But I'm very excited about it. It is always one of my happiest times. Although in my old age, I haven't studied at all. I used to get so serious about it. But luckily, our league is filled with other old people who also don't study. So we have all slowly degraded together. So we're still pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, it is that is the
except for Eric. Eric kicks our ass every single.
Yeah, I don't know how that guy has time to do all the things he does. Really makes me feel bad about myself in all those ways.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So I want to.
It makes me feel bad about myself
in every way possible. But I love him. Mm-hmm. But you can't dislike him.
No.
Anyway, so I'm going to tell a cat story. I have to tell it. So people might know I have my middle cat, Dee Dee. He's that orange guy you'll see popping around sometimes. He was we got him and he was too young and he was too small and he almost died. And the vet was like, wouldn't even look at him because they were like, it's kitten season. A lot of them are going to die. Your cat's not going to make it. It's not worth it. We won't see him. We found these crazy kooky ladies who said they were medical vets, but I don't think they were. And they made him some sort of like sugar powder soup and that he started eating and we got him back to health. This cat is like, I put so much effort when, it's like somebody's like, that cat's going to die. And so I was like,
hell no.
So now the last thing that's going to happen over my dead body is this cat's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had like some severe behavioral issues and sort of mental illness. Like he's just underdeveloped and all kinds of stuff. And prognosis was never really great.
Yeah.
But like, I just did like my own sort of slow, manual. I read all these things about how to manually sort of like mom them and with the scruffing and the tail holding. Cause he has this like, I just have trained him over years and years. He's about to turn 5. So recently he's been wanting to go outside. So we've kind of let him go outside, and he just like walks around the front. He doesn't get too bad. The other day, the UPS lady came, and I've mentioned too, when we got the kitten, it kind of made him chill out a lot. And stuff.
Made a big difference. Yeah.
Huge difference, actually. But anyway, so this UPS lady comes, and he ran up to the UPS lady, and he was like being really friendly, no hissing or biting or anything. And so I was like, okay, he's getting better. So yesterday or the day before, I'm putting my shoes on. He's at the door crying. So I open the door and I let him run out because he doesn't go far. And I was like, I'll get him when I go out. So I get my shoes on and I go out and I see him just chasing a little butterfly through the front yard like this. He's like jumping and trying to get a butterfly. I'm
cute.
like, God, that's cute. I had to go get the mail. So I was like, come on, buddy. Just not even thinking. Come on, buddy. And Keith, he came to my ankle and he walked with me up to the mailbox. And I said, come on, buddy. And I walked down the other side of the block. He came with me. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I continue. And I got halfway around the block, and then he started to get a little afraid. So I walked him back. And then I got a stick, and I sat on the front yard, and I started playing with the stick, and he just played. And I threw the stick, and he went, and he played with it. And we went back inside. So it was about 20 minutes. And I had the full I have a dog experience with my
With your
little cat that I, like, trained up. And I got so emotional, because I was like, from where we started...
Yeah.
And what we thought this was going to be to, like, he's the best cat I have. I mean, I love my other cats, but they're indoor only. Like, I can take this cat outside. He's friendly to everybody. He walks with me, and then we come back in. I was like, that's better than a dog because he'll go poop in the litter box now. So
yeah,
he has totally scratched my itch for getting a dog, which is an insane thing we contemplated. So I'm just so thankful to the lessons I've learned from him, and that's my weekly read.
I mean,
pets.
Hey, that's,
who knew?
Pets, man. Yeah, no, I got to take care of Pretzel this weekend.
Fucking love Pretzel.
She's amazing.
It's everything. All right, well, hey, find your pet, give it a squeeze. If you don't have one, guess what? Don't tell your partner. Just get one anyway. In the meantime, hey, games, movies, TV, knitting, fantasy football, whatever it is, keep on doing the things you find fun. Don't let anybody yuck your yum. And until next week, my friends, keep on geeking on.